"Excuse me, sir, this seat isn't yours." That's what they told him. A black man, wearing a quiet suit, sitting in seat 1A, first class, ticketed, verified, silent, until they moved him. Moved him for someone whiter, louder, less qualified, but more familiar to the system. And that's when he opened his laptop. What they didn't know was who he was. They didn't know what that seat cost him. They didn't know who had taught him to sit quietly, even when humiliated. They didn't know her name was Gloria. And they had no idea. This wasn't a man about to complain. This was a man about to ground 3 airlines. Stay with me to the end of this story, because you're not just about to hear a flight drama. You're about to witness the most elegant corporate takedown you've ever heard. Before we begin, let me ask you, where in the world are you listening from? Type it in the comments. And if this story moves you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let me tell you what really happened at Gate 41. "Sir, you're in the wrong seat. This is first class." The voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the cabin like a slap. "Flight 2903 from Atlanta to Seattle, Terminal B, Gate 41, Friday afternoon. Families rushing home, suits tapping on phones, the whole place humming with delay. But inside row 1, seat A, silence had just claimed the air. The flight attendant stood straight as a coat rack, arms folded. Her name tag read Hillary M. She was white, mid-40s, lipstick sharp, voice sharp. The man she spoke to wore a navy trench-pressed slacks and black leather shoes polished so clean they caught the cabin lights like mirrors. His carry-on was minimalist, not luxury bank loud, just precise. Skin smooth, beard trimmed, bald head gleaming. He looked up, blinked once. "I'm sorry," he said calmly. "This is my seat." A pause. Then Hillary's brows creased like she hadn't heard right, or maybe didn't like the answer. "I don't believe I saw your name on the first class list." She held her tablet like a shield. He didn't flinch. It didn't raise his voice. Just reached into his coat pocket, took out his boarding pass, held it forward, steady. "First class, seat 1A. She didn't take it, just stared. Passengers in rows 2 and 3 turned their heads slowly. A teenage boy nudged his mother, whispering. Someone opened a phone camera, casually, like scratching an itch. "Sir," Hillary said, her smile growing thinner, "I need you to move to your assigned seat. You're blocking boarding." "I am in my assigned seat," he replied, still calm. Then came the second voice, from just behind. A man, white, maybe 66, button-down shirt half tucked, nose red from heat or drinks. He leaned over the armrest from 2B. "Come on, man. Let her do her job. Don't make this into a thing." The black man in 1A turned his head slowly. "I'm not making anything into anything," he said. Hillary finally took the boarding pass with 2 fingers, glanced, then frowned, then tapped the screen, then frowned again. "This says first class, but I'll have to confirm with the gate." He nodded once. "Of course." She walked briskly down the aisle. Whispers trailed behind her like mist. A woman in 3C looked to her husband. "Looks familiar," she murmured. "I think I've seen him on—" and he waved her off. Hillary returned, followed now by another attendant. Younger, black, nervous. "This is LaToya." "She'll verify while I escalate," Hillary said curtly. LaToya stepped forward. "Sir, do you have ID?" He passed it to her without a word. "Driver's license. Platinum airline card. Corporate badge." Turned face down. She studied it, her eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing. She handed it back with both hands. "Everything looks in order." Hillary was already on her walkie. "Yeah, we've got a possible misboard. Row 1, need eyes on it." The air changed. The cabin wasn't loud, but it was no longer quiet. A young woman up front had started recording. Quietly. An older black lady across the aisle clutched her purse tighter. And 1A, still sitting, still buckled, still silent, hands folded, eyes watching the front of the cabin. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man watching a chess game where the next 5 moves had already played out in his head. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Screen bright for just a second. Gate 41. Incident detected. Your call? He locked it again, tucked it away. LaToya stood by, clearly uncertain. She looked at him again. I'm sorry, sir. No apology necessary, he said. Behind them, boarding was backing up, a line of people shifting from foot to foot, frustrated but unsure why. A kid asked his dad, "Why won't they let that man sit down?" His father whispered something back, too quiet to hear. Finally, a voice came from the gate speaker. "Passenger Malcolm Hughes, please return to the front desk for re-verification." Malcolm didn't move. The woman in 3C leaned to her husband again. Wait, did she just say Hughes? As in Malcolm Hughes from Hughes Grant Capital? Her husband frowned. No way, he flies private. Not always, she whispered. At that moment, Hillary returned, this time flanked by a white man in a vest with a badge reading Regional Ops. He didn't say hello. He looked straight at Malcolm. "Sir, you need to exit the aircraft immediately." Malcolm looked up. "I have a paid first-class seat. Your colleague has seen the boarding pass. And my ID." The man didn't blink. "We were told you were attempting to occupy a premium seat under false pretenses." Another phone camera went up. 2 more passengers began recording. From somewhere in the back, someone muttered, "Here we go again." LaToya shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, please, could we step outside just to clear this up?" Malcolm unbuckled, stood, picked up his bag. Slow, controlled, not defeated, deliberate. As he turned down the aisle, someone in row 5 clapped once, sarcastic, then stopped. He walked to the front. The entire cabin watched like a live show. And as he stepped off the plane, the woman in 3C finally remembered. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's not just Malcolm Hughes. That's the man who bought out Continental Freight last quarter." Her husband's mouth opened slightly. "That deal grounded a whole airline." She nodded. "He doesn't take flights. He moves them." He stood still, just past the jet bridge. Not in protest, not in fear, just still, like he was waiting for something to catch up to him. The airport noise buzzed behind him. Agents typing fast, scanners beeping, the hiss of someone dragging too many bags. But none of it touched him. Malcolm Hughes stood tall, coat unbuttoned now, posture steady, like a man who'd never once run through a terminal. Gate agent Thomas, mid-30s, black, overworked, walked up with his tablet. "Sir, we need to verify. I've already shown ID and my boarding pass." "Yes, but—" "Let me help you save time," Malcolm said. He pulled out his phone, tapped twice, and turned the screen to face Thomas. The gate agent blinked. The app displayed the flight, the seat, the payment. Everything matched. And the name, Malcolm R. Hughes. "Is this your profile?" Malcolm asked calmly. "Yes," Thomas said. "That's our interface. That's you. Then what more do you need?" Thomas hesitated. "The regional ops guy," Vest, fake smile, stepped forward. "Sir, I understand your frustration, but these things happen when—" Malcolm raised one brow. "When what?" The man faltered. "Sometimes the system flags inconsistencies." "There were no inconsistencies." "You understand," the man tried again, "when someone boards with limited verification." LaToya, the black flight attendant, stepped forward. He showed everything: platinum card, government ID. His full name and barcode cleared the scanner. The ops guy turned red, then cleared his throat. "Still, we'd like to be sure. Security's on its way." Malcolm nodded, but his gaze never dropped, and he didn't look annoyed. He looked calculating. Across the waiting area, phones were still up. Passengers muttered under breath. "Did you see that man's watch?" "That wasn't no Apple Watch." "Nope," Looked like a Patek. Easy 40 grand. A college kid squinting at his phone whispered, "Yo, I think this dude's in Forbes." "What?" He turned the screen toward his friend. A Google result popped up. Hughes Grant Capital, a fund known for swallowing 3 logistics companies in 18 months. "Wait, is that the guy who bought Air Vista last year?" his friend asked. "Maybe." The whispers grew louder. The regional ops guy stepped away to take a call. Malcolm remained silent, still. Latoya, watching him, finally asked quietly, "Sir, may I ask something?" "Yes." "You travel a lot?" "Used to." She studied him a moment. "You're not some tech YouTuber or anything, are you?" "No. You ever own a company?" Malcolm smiled, just the corner of his mouth. "I own many." Latoya blinked, said nothing. Then, "Are we going to see you on the news tonight?" "That depends," he said, "on how many people hit record." Back in the terminal seats, an older woman with salt and pepper braids, maybe mid-60s, cane resting by her knee, looked up from her book. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Is this about that seat?" Latoya nodded. "Then they picked the wrong one," the older woman murmured. "What do you mean?" a man next to her asked. The woman didn't answer. She just nodded at Malcolm. "That man's got stillness on him," she said. "That kind don't panic. That kind don't run. That kind makes phone calls that end board meetings early." The man beside her scoffed. She smiled. Not at him, at Malcolm. "Watch. This won't end with him moving seats. It'll end with somebody moving out of a job." Malcolm's phone buzzed again. He didn't pick up. He just looked down, read the message, then typed 4 words. "Clear the Seattle stack." No one heard it, but someone, somewhere, would feel it. The terminal clock ticked past 3:17 p.m. The gate agent still hadn't made a move. Malcolm hadn't asked for anything. No yelling, no threats, no public complaints. Just still. Still standing there in the little space between boarding door and wall, like a man waiting for a phone call that would bend reality. And then it rang, a sharp single buzz. He took out the phone, glanced once, then answered. Not on speaker, not loudly, just a simple, "Yeah." A pause. "Delay it." Another pause. "No." "All 3? I'll call the 4th myself." And then he hung up. Latoya, watching from just feet away, froze mid-breath. "You okay, sir?" Malcolm looked at her, voice smooth as silk over stone. "Do you know how many flights leave from this gate group in the next hour?" Latoya blinked. 8? 7 now." "What do you mean?" But before he could reply, the terminal speakers crackled overhead. "Attention passengers in Terminal B, gates 38 through 43. Due to unforeseen operational review, outbound flights are experiencing temporary ground holds. We appreciate your patience." Phones came up. Conversations swelled. "What the? My flight just changed to on hold." "That's mine too." Malcolm walked over to an empty seat near the wall, sat, then pulled out a black leather case, no branding, no logos, opened it. Inside, a slim document folder, a steel pen, a folded set of diagrams. He reviewed them silently. A man in a navy blazer, maybe early 40s, salt in his beard, approached. "Excuse me," he said. Malcolm looked up. "I couldn't help but overhear earlier. Are you Malcolm Hughes?" "I am." The man offered a hand. "Gerald Dawes, I'm with Northline Freight." Malcolm didn't shake the hand, just nodded. Gerald withdrew it awkwardly. "I've seen your name in acquisition documents." "Yes," Malcolm said evenly. Did you just ground half the West Coast?" Malcolm closed the folder. "Not quite. I suggested we pause for clarity." Gerald swallowed. Behind them, the whispers were turning into rumors. A woman in yoga pants said, "Wait, so he's not some tech guy?" "Girl, that man owns planes." "No, he don't." "Yes, he do." Back at the gate, the ops supervisor received a message on his wrist radio. He read it. Then again. His face dropped like a faulty elevator. He turned to the gate agent. Flight 2903, grounded, immediate reassessment. Mr. Hughes is to be returned to his seat and offered a written apology. LaToya blinked. "You're kidding!" "I don't kid," he snapped. LaToya looked across the terminal. Malcolm hadn't moved, still seated, still quiet, but her hands trembled just a little as she picked up the intercom mic. "Paging Mr. Malcolm Hughes. Please return to Gate 41. Your boarding has been reactivated." She put down the mic, looked out at the sea of faces, confused, recording, now whispering harder, and as Malcolm stood, adjusted his cufflinks and walked slowly back toward the gate, the older woman with braids said, just loud enough for people to hear, "Told you." Her voice like a closing piano lid. "That man don't move the world to make a scene, he move it to make a statement." Malcolm Hughes didn't rush. He walked back to Gate 41 the same way he'd walked away, deliberate, quiet, inevitable. LaToya was waiting, hands clasped in front like a student unsure if she'd passed or failed the oral exam. "I've been instructed to escort you directly to your seat, sir," she said, trying not to let her voice shake. He nodded. "Thank you." Hillary, the first attendant, the one who tried to remove him, wasn't visible, but two new uniformed staff stood near the boarding door, unusually stiff. Malcolm stepped onto the jet bridge again, and every head in first class turned. The older white man from 2B, the one who'd told him not to make this into a thing, looked away quickly. The woman in 3C sat upright, phone in hand, clearly mid-sects. Malcolm took his seat again in 1A. This time, no one questioned it. LaToya came down the aisle. "Would you like anything to drink while we wait, Mr. Hughes?" "Still water." She returned quickly, careful, like every movement was being graded. Malcolm took the glass, sipped once, and placed it down with precision. Then he pulled out his phone again, tapped, held it to his ear. This time, the voice on the other end came through clearly. Female, calm, British accent. "Sir, we've notified internal legal teams. The general counsels of SkyWestern and Metrojet are aware. Ground all joint code-share flights for the next 90 minutes. Understood? Pull all executive travel manifests. I want to know who's on what flight, any board members airborne. Reroute." "Yes, sir." "And Olivia, yes, get ready for a statement, no names. Just an acknowledgement. We're going to set the tone before the headlines do." The woman on the line didn't ask why. She simply said, "Copy that." Malcolm hung up. The passenger in 3C finally leaned forward. "Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but are you the same Malcolm Hughes from HGC?" He turned slightly, expression unreadable. "Yes." Her eyes widened. Wow. I didn't know you flew commercial." He offered the faintest smile. "Sometimes you have to walk through the system to understand where it's broken." She sat back slowly. At the same moment, in a private meeting room 3 terminals away, 3 senior airline managers gathered around a speakerphone. "Why are we grounding planes?" one of them barked. The answer came through crisp and low. "Because Malcolm Hughes is airborne. And we just tried to humiliate him in public." Someone gasped. "We?" "No. Gate 41 did. But if you think this isn't about to become our problem, then you haven't been paying attention to your email. Or the trending tab." Back on board, Malcolm opened his laptop. The interface wasn't airline, wasn't stock portfolio, it was internal. A dashboard glowed. Real-time network data. Passenger analytics. Board member status. He clicked a tab. Ground OPS. Incident Gate 41. Notes were already being compiled. Photos, passenger testimonies. Line of internal chat. Do we notify DOJ in advance? Would this trigger PR Clause 9.2? Requesting Mr. Hughes' travel context now. And under that, a short note from legal. Sir, any statement you make will be interpreted as binding. Do you wish to proceed? Malcolm leaned back in seat 1A. The plane still hadn't moved. He looked out the window. The jetway still attached, the world waiting. Then he typed one line into the system. "I'm not here to fly. I'm here to reprogram altitude." He hit send. The gate agent's screen blinked again, first red, then yellow. She tapped it once, froze, then leaned in closer. "No way," she whispered. The name on the incident file now had a tag beside it. It read, Level 5 Shareholder, Strategic Partner, Classification Confidential. Her manager walked over. "What's wrong?" he asked. She turned the screen slightly so he could see. He stared for 2 seconds, then muttered, "Shit," inside the cabin. LaToya moved carefully. Her tray hand was steady, but her breath was not. She poured sparkling water like it was a performance, like she was auditioning for a job she thought she already had. Hillary still hadn't come back. Someone whispered that she'd been pulled into a room. Everyone else in first class sat straighter now, quieter. Seat 1A had become sacred territory. Nobody reclined. Nobody asked for anything. Even the baby in seat 2C had gone silent. And Malcolm? He wasn't angry. He looked inevitable. 3 terminals away inside an operations suite, a security supervisor stared at his screen. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "Why would he even be on this flight?" His assistant, a young man in a gray blazer, responded softly. Apparently he requested a standard commercial route. He wanted to experience the typical process. The supervisor raised an eyebrow. "Experience it how?" The assistant hesitated, then answered, "To observe and to document." The supervisor blinked. "Document what?" The assistant simply replied, "I think, us." Back in 1A, Malcolm crossed one leg over the other. He sipped his water, then opened his laptop again. No airline website, no itinerary, no spreadsheets. Instead, it was a black interface, displaying a dashboard with tabs labeled Network Influence, Passenger Trends, Incident Monitoring. He clicked one labeled Gate 41. It opened to a growing file marked Operational Violation Tier 3, currently under legal review. Inside the file, notes were being added in real time. There were summaries of passenger statements, witness video clips, and one internal comment that read, "Preparing documentation in case we need to notify the Department of Justice in advance." Another line read, "Requesting clarification on Hughes authority. Does this trigger Protocol Clause 9.2? At the bottom of the screen was a message from his legal team. It said, "Sir, any verbal or written statements you provide at this point will be treated as binding declarations. Do you wish to proceed?" Malcolm closed the laptop slowly. He didn't type anything yet. In C3C, the woman who had recognized him earlier whispered to her husband, "They just grounded 2 more flights. Did you see the update?" He nodded. "Yes." The entire terminal's backed up. She exhaled. "Do you think they know who he is now?" He didn't respond. She leaned back, but not to relax. It was more like surrender. Near Gate 12, on the 2nd floor of the executive tower, a director in a pinstriped suit slammed her laptop shut. "This is going to explode," she said to her team. Her assistant, standing near the door, asked quietly, "Do you want us to prepare a statement?" She shook her head. "No, not yet. We don't even know what he wants. Until we know that, we stay quiet." She paused, "And may God help whoever tried to move him out of that seat." Back inside the plane, the older white man in 2B finally leaned forward. "Mr. Hughes," he said, softly, "I want to apologize. I didn't realize." Malcolm didn't look up. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "You didn't ask to be part of this lesson." The man nodded slowly, then sat back. He didn't speak for the rest of the flight. Meanwhile, in a private Slack channel inside SkyWestern Airlines, messages poured in from the corporate comms team. One line read, "Media prep team begin drafting reactive statements for 3 categories. 1. Protocol misidentification. 2. VIP handling policy. 3. Racial discrimination claims. Use the version that doesn't admit fault unless directly prompted by the Hughes Group. Beneath that, someone added, also, can anyone confirm if Malcolm Hughes still owns 8% of our stock? Or did he increase his stake this quarter? No one replied. Malcolm pulled out his phone again. He opened an email thread from his office. Instead of reading it silently, the AI voice will now narrate it for the listener. The subject line read, Internal Reorganization, Flight Systems. The message was simple. Malcolm dictated into the phone as he typed, Effective immediately. I want a full audit of all travel partner algorithms, priority boarding queues, and manual override systems. This isn't about fixing a bug. This is about replacing the software that assumes certain people don't belong in certain seats. Then he hit send. Inside the cockpit, the captain was finishing a call with Central Dispatch. Yes, sir, he said. We were told Mr. Hughes may be conducting a systems evaluation. A pause. Then he asked, Evaluate what? The voice on the other end simply answered, Everything, Captain. He's evaluating everything. Finally, just beyond the jet bridge, Hillary sat alone in a folding chair outside the gate. Her radio was gone. Her badge removed. She held her phone, but the screen was locked, and a single message glowed. It read, Your access has been suspended, pending investigation. Please remain in a secure area. Do not speak to the press. She looked toward the jet bridge, toward the plane she could no longer enter, toward the seat she'd tried to reclaim for someone else, toward the man she hadn't recognized but now couldn't forget. From 30,000 feet above, everything looked small, but right now everything on the ground was holding its breath, and it all started from seat 1A. Malcolm Hughes opened his laptop again. The screen showed a secure dashboard marked Flight Control Delegation Alliance Tier Level. He tapped once. A warning popped up. This action will temporarily suspend operational clearance for all linked regional departures. Are you sure? He tapped again. Confirmed. At that same moment, in 3 different airport control towers, Atlanta, Dallas, and Denver, a system alert blinked red. Priority route override. Source, shareholder executive access. Code, MH1. Status, hold. Back in the cabin, LaToya was checking seatbelts. Passengers were restless. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received word from the ground that we'll be experiencing a slight delay before pushback. His tone was tight, like someone had just taken the yoke from his hands. In terminal operations, a supervisor burst into the VP's office. Sir, she said, breathless, you need to see this. The VP looked up from his coffee. What now? She turned her tablet toward him. It displayed a message. Simple. Bold. Effective immediately, all partner-operated flights under Alliance route control are to be held for review. Below that, in smaller text, action initiated by Malcolm R. Hughes. The VP dropped his coffee. Is he serious? She nodded. Very. Phones buzzed in executive pockets across 4 time zones. One message, same across all major carriers. Operational privilege temporarily revoked. Awaiting executive review. Your alliance is under audit. On the aircraft, seat 3A opened LinkedIn again. He typed, Just witnessed something I've never seen. A man quietly took back control of 3 airlines from seat 1A. Not with rage, not with press, just a system and a code. He hit post. 3 minutes later, it had 2,000 likes. In the legal offices of Sky Western Airlines, a partner attorney leaned in to her colleague. Does this fall under Clause 17B? No, the other replied. This falls under Clause Hughes. On Malcolm's screen, messages were updating fast. Metrojet grounded, confirmed. West Sky rerouting 4 board execs. Eastern Horizon suspended flights to D.C. until further notice. He typed just one line into the interface. Pause. Until someone explains why removing me was a decision anyone thought they had the right to make. He hit send. Then he stood up, walked down the aisle. People moved aside like wind before a storm. He didn't speak, didn't need to. He reached the galley. Hillary wasn't there, just LaToya. She straightened when she saw him. He looked at her. Quiet. "You did your job," he said. "Thank you, sir." Then he opened the cabin door, not to exit, but to speak to the crew chief standing just beyond it. "Who's the ranking gate authority right now?" he asked. The crew chief swallowed. "That would be Director Patel, sir." "Call him." "Yes, Mr. Hughes. And tell him I want the full roster of who greenlit the sea transfer. Not tomorrow. Not in an email. Now." "Yes, sir." 10 minutes later, inside the conference room of Terminal Command, 4 supervisors sat around a speakerphone. Malcolm's voice came through, even and exact. This wasn't about the seat or the ticket. It was about who you thought was allowed to sit there. Silence. Then the response came from a senior VP whose name few passengers would ever know. "You're right, and we were wrong." Malcolm didn't reply immediately. When he did, it was one sentence. "Then consider this your final boarding call for systemic change." And somewhere beyond the terminals and the offices, in a boardroom none of them could see, a meeting began. The screen lit up with the words, "Alliance Equity Session," initiated by Malcolm R. Hughes. Purpose, accountability. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The conference room inside Terminal Command wasn't grand. No marble, no art. Just plastic chairs, stale coffee, and the thick air of men who suddenly realized they had no idea who they were sitting across from. Malcolm Hughes remained standing. He didn't need the seat. Across the table, Director Patel cleared his throat. "Mr. Hughes, first, let me apologize." Malcolm raised one hand, a gentle interruption. "Don't start with apology, start with facts." Patel nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, sir." To his left, the VP of Operations, a man named Harlan Ridgway, opened a laptop. "Mr. Hughes, if there's anything we can do to resolve—" Malcolm cut in again. "Resolution without recognition is worthless." Then, calmly, he reached into his briefcase, pulled out a dark leather folder, laid it flat on the table, opened it. The room leaned in. Inside were 3 documents. One, a legal agreement bearing the seal of the U.S. Securities Commission. Another, a stock certificate. The third was marked in bold, Strategic Acquisition Agreement, Multi-Carrier Holdings. Malcolm slid the first document forward. "This is proof of controlling interest in Metrojet. 21% through HGC Trust." He placed the second beside it. "For 2 years, I've watched the Alliance pattern, watched who gets upgrades, who gets rebooked, who gets randomly selected, who gets misplaced in seat 1A. Patel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Malcolm continued. "You didn't just eject a black man from a paid seat, you ejected the man who signed your fleet contracts." Ridgway shifted in his chair. Malcolm pointed to the screen mounted on the wall. "Turn it on." A staffer obeyed. The screen lit up. It showed a title. "Governance Session, Live Stream Active." In the corner, the number of viewers ticked upward. 742, 899, 1,104. Malcolm looked at the men in the room. "Gentlemen, I've made this public for one reason." He paused. "Because behind every quiet, dignified passenger you've ignored, there might be someone like me, with a pen sharp enough to rewrite your structure." Outside the room, in the gate lobby, LaToya stood watching the screen from a mounted display. Passengers gathered. The older woman with silver braids from earlier shook her head slowly. "Well, look at that," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Turns out the man they tried to erase is the one holding the ledger." A younger woman whispered, "Wait, he owns them?" "No," the elder replied, owns the power to change them. That's more permanent. Back in the room, Ridgway finally spoke again. What are your terms? Malcolm's answer was immediate. Accountability. Not just for this flight, for the entire alliance. He pulled out one final document, this one printed on thick ivory paper sealed in wax. It read, "The ownership clause." He slid it across the table. This clause, embedded quietly in your shareholder agreement, gives me authority to trigger a systemic review if material discrimination is proven. And is it proven? Ridgway asked, voice shaking. Malcolm looked up. Outside the window, Gate 41 was packed with people watching on screens. He gestured toward them. You tell me. The screen blinked again, another update. Viewers, 3,087. Tag, the ownership clause now trending. One more line appeared beneath. Legal team for Sky Western requests emergency contact. Counsel for Metrojet requests meeting. Eastern Horizon Board initiating internal session. Malcolm closed the folder, looked directly at them. This isn't a threat, it's a correction. He stood, and before walking out the door, he turned back, just once. Gentlemen, he said, you're not being grounded because I'm angry. You're being grounded because you forgot who owns the runway. Then he left. Began with one email. Well, not an email, a statement, typed directly by Malcolm Hughes from a secure terminal inside the terminal operations room, then dispatched to 3 legal teams, 12 executives, and over 50,000 employees. It read, effective immediately, all disciplinary authority regarding Incident 41A is suspended. A review committee will be formed within 12 hours, composed of external civil rights auditors and passenger advocates. The following changes are non-negotiable. He listed 5 bullet points, one by one. And every one of them hit like thunder. First, personnel changes. Within 30 minutes, Hillary, the attendant who removed him, was escorted off airport property, her access badge revoked, her employee file locked for legal inquiry. Inside a glass room, she stared at her phone in disbelief. A message appeared. Please do not return to active duty. HR will contact you for post-termination debrief. Captain James T. Morris, the supervisor who backed her decision, was suspended indefinitely pending review of 6 similar complaints in his file. His name had never trended on social media before, but now it was on Twitter, next to the words, systemic pattern. Second, policy overhaul. An emergency notification was sent to every airline partner across the Hughes-controlled alliance. Priority boarding, upgrade decisions, and seat reassignment policies are frozen. All staff must adhere to new protocol, ID, not identity, policy, not perception. Attached to the memo was a brief training video, 15 minutes long, narrated by a calm, assertive voice, and how to ground it. It was mandatory, viewed over 18,000 times by end of day. Third, media redirection. Malcolm's team pushed out an official press statement, short, quiet, surgical. This morning, a first-class passenger was removed without cause. That passenger is also the controlling shareholder of 3 airline groups. What followed was not revenge, it was a reminder that the people we overlook might be the ones who decide what happens next. The press ran wild. NBC called it the corporate reversal, heard round the terminals. CNN led with, Black man removed from first class, grounds and industry. TikTok exploded. Clips of Malcolm boarding, sitting, speaking. Thousands stitched it. One comment read, this wasn't a meltdown, it was a masterclass. Fourth, public visibility. At 5:17 p.m., the Alliance website quietly added a new tab. It was simple. Report discrimination. Direct to board. No passwords, no hoops, just one form, one promise. Every story will be read. Every incident will be reviewed. No one will be silenced again. By nightfall, over 2,300 reports had already been submitted. Many began with the same haunting phrase, "This happened to me too." And then finally came the fifth, the one no one expected. Executive bonuses, frozen. A new clause had been inserted into the performance contracts of every airline VP across the Hughes portfolio. No executive will receive performance-based compensation unless diversity metrics improve quarter over quarter, starting now. The VP of SkyWestern opened his email, saw the clause, and nearly dropped his phone. In his inbox was a voice message from Malcolm's assistant. Just one line. Change isn't just about culture, it's about calculus. Meanwhile, Malcolm sat again in seat 1A. The plane had not yet departed. The sun was lower now, casting long golden streaks across the runway. LaToya leaned in beside him. "Mr. Hughes," she whispered, "everything's different now, isn't it?" He looked up. "No," he said. "Everything's been the same. They just finally saw it, all at once." In the air traffic tower, the final message came through. All 3 carriers cleared for departure. System reset complete. Awaiting your word, sir. Malcolm closed his laptop, gave one nod, and the captain's voice came through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We've been cleared for takeoff." The plane rolled forward, but something else had already lifted off long before. The screen glowed in the center of the room. It wasn't flashy, no startup logo, no music, just words, white on black. Emergency reform session, convened by Malcolm R. Hughes. Location, virtual secure boardroom 0x19. Time, now. 8 faces appeared in little squares, executives, legal heads, former board members who hadn't attended a real meeting in years. Most looked tense. A few tried to smile. Malcolm didn't. He sat still in front of the camera, framed by nothing but a glass wall and a single chair. His voice came calm, direct. "Let's begin." The CEO of Metrojet cleared his throat. "Mr. Hughes, first I want to—" "No statements," Malcolm said, "just answers." The room went silent. He tapped a key. A new slide appeared. It showed a chart. Passenger removal incidents. Race-coded. 5 years. 3 airlines. The trend line was brutal. Upward. Steep. Predictable. He didn't need to explain it. He just said, "You've seen this. You buried it." The VP of Compliance tried to jump in. "That data was inconclusive." "Enough," Malcolm said. "You just found it inconvenient." He tapped again. New slide. Names. Dozens. All marked. Misidentified. Escalated unnecessarily, or profiled at gate. Then he asked quietly, "How many people didn't have a shareholder title to fight back?" Nobody answered. He let the silence thicken. Then he nodded once. "I'm appointing a reform chair, independent, with authority." The CFO frowned. "Who?" A new face joined the call. Older woman. Silver braids, calm eyes. It was the same woman from the terminal. The one who'd watched from the crowd, said nothing, but saw everything. Her name tag appeared. Dorothy Givens, founder, Passage Rights Coalition, former gate agent, civil rights field historian. Malcolm said, "Dorothy will be overseeing all passenger equity cases moving forward. Her team reports only to me." Someone on the call muttered, "Unprecedented." Malcolm replied, "So was what happened at Gate 41. Dorothy smiled gently. "Good evening, gentlemen. I won't take much of your time, just your excuses." She pulled up a list, started reading. Flight numbers, times, gate agents, names. Not angry, not dramatic, just facts. Like laying bricks. One by one, the executives leaned back, deflated. By the time she finished, no one was defending anything. Malcolm leaned in once more. "This meeting is not about optics or press or strategy. It's about cost. Every seat you stole from someone who looked like me is about to cost you something back." Then he ended the call. Just like that, the screen went black. But Malcolm didn't leave the room. He sat, waited. And 10 seconds later, another screen lit up. This one wasn't airlines or airports. It showed 3 logos: Railway Authority, Maritime Access, Federal Transit Board. He tapped a file. It opened to a map of bus terminals and train depots. The folder name read, Phase 2, Mobility Equity Act, Initiation Draft. Behind him, the skyline blinked to life, and Malcolm whispered, 1 system down, 5 to go. The house sat quietly at the end of a long gravel road. Not grand, not modern, just still. Inside, the sun touched everything with gold: books, picture frames, a clock that ticked just a little slow, and a single photo, black and white, resting above the fireplace. A woman, early 40s, wide smile, flight attendant uniform from another era, the kind with real gloves, real pride. Malcolm stood before it, still in his travel clothes. He reached up, adjusted the frame, and whispered, "We're finally boarding, Gloria." Years ago, before shareholders and systems, before the audits and acquisitions, she had stood in that uniform, gate tag around her neck, smiling, serving. And one day she was asked to give up her seat, mid-shift, in uniform, for a higher-class guest. She didn't argue. She stepped back, watched the man sit where she'd been, and later that week, when she filed a quiet complaint, she was moved to non-customer roles, then to part-time, then to nothing. No story, no noise, no Twitter thread, just one woman, erased. Her name was Gloria Hughes, Malcolm's mother. Never spoke bitterly, never taught him to hate, just told him the same line every night before bed. "Son, systems forget faces like mine, so you'll have to carry the memory." And he did. Through every boardroom, every quarterly call, every signed document, every mile flown, he carried her. Until one day he sat in 1A, not to enjoy it, but to test it, to see if anything had changed. And when they removed him, he knew the system hadn't just forgotten Gloria. It never remembered her at all. Back in the present, Malcolm walked to the porch. The night air smelled like pine and peace. Dorothy sat on the steps holding 2 cups of tea. She handed him one. "Saw the press this morning," she said. "They're calling it the Hughes Doctrine." He chuckled softly. "Sounds dramatic." She sipped. Not dramatic, just overdue. They sat in silence a while, then Dorothy asked, "So what's next?" Malcolm looked up at the stars. "The next gate," he said. She nodded, then whispered, "Her name was Gloria." He smiled. "Still is." And the screen faded to black. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Some stories shout, but others whisper until you're forced to listen. This one was a whisper turned thunder. Malcolm Hughes didn't raise his voice. He didn't file a complaint. He made one call and reminded a system that dignity has shareholders too. But at the heart of all this, there was Gloria, a woman who never made the news, who never got her seat back, but whose son built an empire just to make sure no one like her ever disappeared again. That's the power of memory, the power of not forgetting. If this story touched something in you, share it. Share it with your mother, your aunt, your daughter, or maybe with that friend who always shrinks in the face of systems. Leave a comment. Let me know where you were listening from and who you thought about while hearing this. And please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories just like this one.